We are going to hand you documents for those of you who are reporters, either print or media. We don't expect you to go through all of it right now. And as the teacher said at class, or the professor said, if you would not read through it in advance, we'll walk you through a couple of tab pages. The reason for this is we want the media to get the facts straight. There has been, I'll give the media the benefit of the doubt, some misunderstanding, misreporting, and I would say in many cases not asking for the facts, not asking for the other side of the story. And I think you will be surprised today what you hear. We're going to update you on progress being made in Houston. We're going to talk about CenterPoint. But first, I want to honor another law enforcement officer who was potentially ambushed last night in Harris County, as you all have reported on. Whoever these animals were will be caught, prosecuted, and hopefully a judge will give them, or a jury, the punishment they deserve. In the midst of this storm recovery, when so many people are suffering, when our police are working 12 and 16-hour shifts, to think that a bunch of animals go in and pistol whip someone behind the counter of a pizza shop because they didn't get their order right, and they go out and apparently set an ambush, at a minimum, gun down one of our brave heroes in his patrol vehicle, will not stand. Will not. And the criminals in this city, in this county, and they are there, better be on notice. The police will hunt you down. Just 2 days ago, we had a press conference with Mayor Whitmire and Chief Satterwhite said they needed more people. Instantly, within hours, Nim Kidd, our chief of TDEM, Texas Division of Emergency Management, reached out to other police departments, and we have reinforcements coming, some already here. We already sent 40 troopers. We'll send more if needed. We will send as many police as is needed to this community to protect the community, to protect the property, and protect each other, their fellow officers. It's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. We pray for the family. It's my understanding the officer had been on the force for 5 years, just doing his job. Just doing his job. So, let's talk about the storm. First, I want to give an update of what Nim and I have been doing the last couple of days, quickly. We've traveled the state. On Tuesday, the day after the storm, we left the emergency center in Austin, and we went to Bryan College Station. They had some damage, but it's also our staging center for the state, which is important here, that we will get back to that in a moment. That staging center can sleep 200 individuals that we would send out to help citizens. We can keep boats there, trucks there. We even had a crew from Missouri and Tennessee that we brought in advance. We were prepared in advance. That's our staging center. We went there and we got a briefing with local officials. Then we went to League City for Galveston County and had a briefing there with local officials. And then we came to Houston and had a briefing with the mayor and local officials. Yesterday, we traveled by helicopter to Matagorda County, where the storm made landfall, met with local officials and had a briefing. And when we say we had a briefing, we go around the table with the emergency management people, the sheriffs, the constables, the county commissioners, the judges, the mayors, whoever has a need or a question, we answer, we ask, and we fulfill. And then we took the helicopter to Jasper where they had multiple tornadoes, and their belief is somewhere between 40 and 60 homes were greatly damaged or destroyed, and tremendous damage, trees down everywhere. That's what we did yesterday. Now, why do we do that? We do that because under the law, the federal government law, that's our job, no matter what Joe Biden or Lena Hidalgo have to say about it. And we will follow the law, the federal law, in our request to the federal government. Let's be clear, and we'll get to that. And what we do is we say, is there anything you need? And everywhere I went, and this man's been doing this job now for 15 years, 16 years?
Yes, sir.
The best in the country. So we've been around talking to lots of counties, and we were in Jasper, but we had other counties there. There's not a county judge or a mayor who has not gotten what he or she asked for, and the requests that they've made since we've been there, they will get. There's not a county judge or a city mayor or a commissioner who has said to us, the state of Texas did not get them what they wanted when they needed it. And might I add, just for the record, on Saturday, we reached out to Lena Hidalgo and asked her if she needed anything, and she texted back, no. Sunday, we asked her, did she need anything? She didn't answer. Monday, we asked her, did she need anything? And she said, we're good. Tuesday, we asked her if she needed anything. We're good. We have not had one request from the county judge of Harris County. So I guess all of her citizens are fine in the unincorporated areas because she didn't need anything. But if she did, we're there to fulfill it. So, Nim, let me turn it over to you to give us an update of what we're doing in Houston at this state.
Thank you, Governor. Start off with a little bit of good news is after the rains, the rivers and streams are improving, drainage is improving, but it is still a dangerous situation. If there is water still over the road, please turn around, do not drown. And water that we received in the northern part of our state will continue to come down as it tries to work its way to the Gulf. So even though you may have somewhat blue skies and no chance of rain, if there are barricades over a road, please do not remove them and please do not drive around them. Roads will still be dangerous as we work through these next several days for the waters to recede and rivers and creeks to get back in their bank. I'm going to talk specifically about the Houston-Galveston Area Council of Government, HGAC. 12 of the counties in HGAC have declared countywide disasters in 30 of the cities. We are currently on 160 boil water notices across 8 of those counties. And that's very important that citizens understand. We are continuing to source and deliver water to points of distribution as requested by your local officials. We are doing a very good job of moving those logistics and working with all partners, our private sector partners, our volunteer organizations, and the federal government, at the good people at FEMA, to help us work through this process. You have 135 wastewater treatment plants that are offline right now, and the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and our Public Works response teams are working to get those back up as quickly as we can. Electricity is still the #1 issue that we are dealing with right now. In fact, electricity is what's causing the boil water notices and the wastewater treatment plants to go offline, in addition to the other damages. Hospitals are severely impacted by this right now. 12 hospitals in this county are still on internal disaster. We continue to have our field hospital set up at NRG Stadium. We continue to bring EMS units and resources in to support local 911 needs, as well as put staff at those hospitals so that when an ambulance goes to the hospital with an acute patient, that they can get that patient seen and turned over to the doctors and nurses in the ER, and that ambulance can get back out on the street for the next 911 call. We have 43 dialysis clinics that are still having issues right now. We are working with them to either move their patients to a different location or make sure that dialysis is available. It is very critical to those patients that need it. Our ISTAT, and we've asked you to help get the information out about ISTAT. As Governor Patrick mentioned, we will follow the federal law. 44 CFR Section 206, which will be provided in your packet, is very clear of what all states are supposed to do in order to request federal assistance. We're following those regulations to the letter. We now have about 1,400 homes that have had their assessments done and we believe qualify for individual assistance. Stars continue to come in. Those are the state of Texas assistance requests. We continue to get stars. In fact, at 9 o'clock last night, we got the first star from the city of Houston for generators. We're going to work with the city to make sure we source the generator to the buildings that they need to go to and get those generators on those facilities as fast as possible. That's it for the report, Governor.
So I want to go through a little bit to make sure the record is clear on what has happened, and then I want to talk about power after that, and then we'll take whatever questions. I apologize if I raised my voice too much in the beginning, but I am just heartbroken for this officer who was killed. And it's hard to move on from that. Since I've been lieutenant governor and Greg Abbott's been governor, we've lost over 50 officers in the line of duty. I've been to many of those funerals, including in this area, and every time we lose one, there's a piece of all of us who dies with them, because they're just people like you out there protecting us. So pray for their families. I want to walk through what has been totally misreported about the interaction between the state and the federal government, specifically with the President of the United States. Not because we need to address this now, but because, not intentionally, do I believe, but the media is putting out some misinformation which I think undermines the progress we need to make, undermines their faith that Texas is delivering on everything they need. Because I've read it in the newspaper, because I've seen it on television. I saw a false report last night. It wasn't intentional. Someone saying that I needed to fill out a form so people could get personal assistance. That's just only a little part of the story. You have to follow the law and do the assessments first. It's not waiting on the state of Texas, NIM or myself. We have to do and follow the law. And we now have assessments because we had teams in the field doing what? In 15 counties, going out and getting the information required by the federal government to get individuals assistance. And we have teams out today where we can add to that. And we will give you those 15 counties where people will be able to get federal assistance, because I will make that declaration today. But by law, I could not do it until we followed the federal guidelines. Were there those 15 counties?
So the counties that you will be requesting from the president, and the president will have to grant this, is Brazoria, Chambers, Galveston, Harris, Jackson, Jasper, Jefferson, Liberty, Matagorda, Montgomery, Orange, Polk, San Jacinto, Walker, and Wharton.
And we can give those to you at the end again if you would like. Again, the law says we have to go out and do the assessments, because FEMA just doesn't hand out money unless there's some proof of need. So we do what we're supposed to do. But total misreporting, because I just don't think you all knew the facts. And that's okay, we understand. Just ask us, we'll tell you before you go to print, because we don't want to undermine people to think, well, we're not getting what we should get. You know, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. We're doing everything we should have done. And now I want to walk you through, and this will be a short walk. The first page where there's a yellow sticker here. They're not numbered, it's about the fourth page in. It's a brief timeline of the interaction with President Biden, because there's one of two things that are a fact. He's either totally incompetent and has no idea what he's doing. I want to repeat, the president is either totally incompetent and has no idea what he is doing and does not remember what he said, or he's just lied to me and to Texas. As you will see as we go through these documents, it's documented. But just so you have the timeline. At 3:30, President tweets, I've spoken to Mayor Whitmire, Judge Hidalgo, and spoken earlier with Lieutenant Governor and FEMA regarding devastating impacts on the Hurricane Beryl of Texas. While speaking with the Lieutenant Governor, I immediately approved a major disaster declaration. So, let's go back to him finding me and finding the governor. And the governor's responded the same. Excuse my allergies. The governor responded the same. The president has his cell number. He has called the president before. What's he mean he can't find the governor? What's he mean he can't find me? I was with his FEMA officials Friday, Sunday, Monday for 12 or 15 hours a day, sitting right behind me or next to me or in meetings with them. All we had to do was ask the FEMA advisors who work with us, and they're good people. We don't have any problem with the rank and file of FEMA. We don't have any problem. We have a great relationship with him. He didn't. It was a lie. He made it up. I couldn't find them. He didn't try. And I don't think any of you have asked for their phone call logs, but you've asked for his phone call logs. Ask for their phone. What did he do? He talked to Mayor Whitmire, I believe the night before. He could have asked Mayor Whitmire for my number. He could have said, do you know the Lieutenant Governor? He wasn't trying to find us. He was trying to create a story. I couldn't find them. Couldn't find them. So that they need, they're delaying everything. We weren't delaying anything. So, what happens, go back one page, go to 1149, see where it says 1149, 22nd phone call from FEMA External Affairs. So 8 minutes go by from FEMA, who called, or Seth, called this gentleman right here. The president wanted to reach me, wanted my phone number. He could have asked FEMA on Saturday or Sunday, but he waited till Monday. Seth gives him the phone number, my cell number. Time passes, he never calls. And who does he call? He calls him. He doesn't even know who to call after we give him the numbers. He's looking for me, we give him the number, he calls him. But we were in the room, we were assuming he might make a mistake. While on the phone, President Biden asked the acting governor to announce their conversation and the president's approval of my request in the upcoming press conference. If you go back and look at my tweet, you will see that I put out a very professional, non-political tweet that I talked with the president. I appreciated him issuing the disaster declaration that I wanted. And he asked me to go out and talk about it. I did. I thanked him. I told the local officials. He asked me, he said, are you going to go and announce this? I want you to announce this. Yes, sir. We'll do that. By the way, I asked him for an emergency disaster declaration. Key point. And I asked it and filled out the form for it to be continuing. You're going to learn that what he gave us, he took away immediately. He gave it, shouted about it, blamed Abbott and I for not doing something right. He gave us the money and he took it away immediately, and the documents show it. Total lie, or doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So the next thing that happened, we begin at 12:07, right out 5 minutes after the phone call, to start the paperwork. Now we go to the next page where the president says he's talked with everyone, and he immediately approved read this line at 3:50, I immediately approved a major disaster declaration. We have a tweet on that. You can all find it. We'll send it to you if you're looking for it. He makes a big deal that we'll get it to you, or maybe in the packet. He tweeted, he made a major declaration. No, he didn't. I asked him for an emergency disaster declaration. He then tweets out, he gave us a major declaration. He made a mistake. So he lied about trying to reach us. He's confused about what he did. I asked him to give us a continuing agreement. And then he announces he's made a major declaration. Now, what does that mean? It means benefits that are really good for Texas. Obviously, his staff figures out he made a mistake. And so at 4 o'clock, we get a call from them. We need you to change your disaster declaration. So when Lena Hidalgo says, well, the lieutenant governor in the state of Texas needed help. No, we didn't help. He granted on the phone a major disaster. He announced he gave us a major declaration. Words mean something under the law of what benefits we get. So his staff said, Mr. President, you made a mistake, I assume. We've got to ask the governor to change the declaration, which we did. Which we did. So that was the second declaration. I want you to go back now to, there's 3 yellow tags on the back. The first one will say, we asked for a emergency disaster on the phone, which I did, which he granted, which he bragged about. And we checked the box for it to be a continuing declaration. In other words, don't end, because we don't know how much damage we're going to have. And then you have the page that says a major. That's the second declaration we made, because he didn't know what he told me on the phone, and he announced something differently to the world. And that one says major disaster, continuing below that. Continuing. Guess what he did? Guess what Uncle Joe did? Where's our page with the... On July 9th, the day I talked to him, the day he agreed to a emergency disaster declaration, the day he then asked for a major declaration because he messed up. He didn't know what he was talking about or what he had told me. It says date requested by governor, July 9th. Incident period in yellow, July 9th, the 5th to the 9th. So the day he gave it to us, he ended it. He ended our reimbursements for any new claims we would make. Can you believe this guy? Can you believe this guy? Now, we can ask for an extension, and we will, and he'll need to grant it. He's going to have to give us another declaration or an extension through FEMA. An extension. So I just want you to be clear. 3 things happen. I ask him for an emergency disaster. He grants it. I said I need it continuing, and I need it for 121 counties. And guess what else he did on this day? He cut our list from 121 counties to 67? 67. So he took out almost all the counties. So what did he do? It was just, he's politicized the operation of FEMA with the state of Texas, either because he's trying to save his hide and stay on the ballot because Democrats are trying to take him off, or he doesn't know what he was doing and doesn't remember what he said or what he did. We have never, ever had any president, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, politicize the work with FEMA and the states. It's a sacred agreement we have. City and counties need help. The state helps them. The federal government helps us. On the same day he granted it, he ended it. Nim?
Thank you, Governor. I'd like the opportunity to help explain to some of the media and any of the folks that are watching or listening to this about how the declaration process works. In your packet, you have 44 CFR, that's Code of Federal Regulations, Section 206, that FEMA wrote to discuss how states are supposed to follow the law. there's one person on the planet that can override that law and grant a declaration outside of the law, and that's the President of the United States. There has been some reporting that this was a slow ask, and I will tell you, that's a lie. This was not a slow ask. This was a timely ask following the law. And in fact, I would argue that Governor Patrick's ask of Biden to get this declaration may have sped it up had he not ended it on the exact same day. But the document that I have that we will share with you goes back to 2007 from a time frame perspective. This will be the 27th major disaster declaration since 2007. The average time, and on this spreadsheet, this is why it's so important for you to look at this, the average time on this spreadsheet that it takes for FEMA to give an answer back to the governor on if we have qualified for a major disaster is 16 days. Why would it take the federal government 16 days to answer a governor's request? Because unless a president is going to intervene, the law says the feds have to follow the same laws that we have to follow in submitting that request. And so I urge you to look at this and please help us correct this narrative and get this story right. There are Texans right now that still don't have power. And it embarrasses me and it saddens me to the point that this president has weaponized the federal government to enrage our citizens here to thinking that I am not doing my job and that our governor is not doing his job. And that's a lie. They are absolutely doing the job. They are taking every bit of the professional advice that I give them, and there is no way that our recovery process could move any faster. In fact, I would argue the games and the drama that the federal government is adding to this would even be slowing down that process, and it needs to stop now.
Yeah. So the average time it took for the federal government to grant the declaration, going back to 2007, was 16 days. And I got it done in 10 minutes. One day, which was Tuesday. And again, I did not believe that there was any ill intent or malice on behalf of the president when I talked to him. It was a cordial conversation. But when you see, as soon as we announce it and thank him, he then attacks Greg Abbott, he attacks me, he attacks our response that we delay and it's going to hurt the citizens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It made me wonder. And then when I get this document that he cut it almost in half, 60, we had 121 counties, he cuts it down to 67, and then he ended it the same day he gave it to me. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. So that's the facts. If you have questions in your reporting, ask us. Don't believe what Lena Hidalgo might say. She put out, we put this in our packet too. She put out a tweet after the president gave us the money. And she says down here, for families and businesses, this means access to federal aid. Lena, you don't know what you're talking about either. No, what the president granted is not for individuals. So she's putting out a statement that says, once he gave that disaster, families and businesses are going to get money. That's not true. That's another declaration, which is the 1A, individual assistance, which I will submit today. And the reason I'm submitting it today, because under the law, we had to do assessments, which we did in 15 counties, and the other counties are being done today. And by the way, if you're an individual in one of those counties that he didn't approve, you're not going to get any individual assistance because he cut you out. He cut it from 121 counties to 67. So my job as governor or lieutenant governor, and the governor will be back, is to get the people of Texas everything they deserve, to get our local governments everything they deserve, to repay them for all their expenses. And as Nim said, we want the President of the United States to quit weaponizing this agency and trying to really create problems with the people of Texas by them thinking somehow they're not getting what they deserve. lastly, on that issue, and then we'll talk about power, there was the question, well, why wouldn't we ask for his assistance before? Had he called me Sunday, I would have said, Mr. President, thank you. I don't need the declaration today. We'll need it in a few days, and I will call you. And here's the reason. And you'll look at this sheet here, it goes back to 2007. There was a time when we would use emergency declarations, and there's sometimes we do it now. But back in 2007, 2008, 2010, we didn't have this great agency we have now in Texas. We poured hundreds of millions of dollars into building the best emergency response team and emergency management team in the country. You know, Joe Biden said, oh, I have all these generators. We didn't need any of his generators. We filled every request we have. Is there any request you had that you did not fulfill on generators?
The ones we got last night, we are sourcing right now. The
Yeah.
others have been filled.
Yeah. So we got the list from Houston last night for the first time. Every other one, everything was filled. We didn't need them. Now, we want their assistance, and we want them to reimburse our cities and counties and our citizens, and we can use their meals and we can use their ice and water now or later, but we didn't need them Sunday. We didn't need them Monday. In fact, they would have slowed us down because on the generators, when we get a generator from the federal government that Joe Biden wanted to give us, it would have taken days to get it up and running. We get our generators out like that.
True. The way the push package comes from the feds, those generators set on skids, and those skids have to be loaded onto a truck and trailer from the location that they're looked at. We have to assess them first because we haven't seen them before. We have to make sure that they run and they have all of their parts. Then we load them on a trailer, we take them to the location, unload them from the trailer, and then work with an electrician to get them set up. The way that we send generators out of our contract is one call to a contractor that has a generator on wheels, takes it to the location and sets it up. It goes a lot faster. The Corps of Engineers supports FEMA in the generator push package. The Corps staff has told us it is at least 48 hours from the time that a generator is identified to fit a location before they can have electricity on. I think many of you can report out that we had generators as soon as they pulled up working with the building owners that had already installed manual transfer switches. Power was coming back onto those within hours, not 48 hours, not 2 days.
So ours were faster. We didn't need his. We have everything. And then as the days go by, yes, you need reinforcements from some of their supplies, but we didn't need it those days. So this has been a political stunt, unfortunately, from him from day one. And we're going to get everything we should get for our citizens. Look, I don't know if he's going to be president next week. Seems to be a lot of people in his own party trying to get rid of him. But whoever we work with, whether it's himself or Kamala Harris or whomever it is, we will work with them. We have a great relationship with FEMA, a great relationship. And all of their people, we were with Tony Robbins, our district coordinator yesterday. He's fabulous. They're all fabulous. This was all either campaign driven or just a president who didn't know what he was talking about and looking to score some political points, maybe to divert other things. And I'm not going to let Texans bear the brunt of that. Power. The governor announced today that he's asking for an investigation of CenterPoint and any power company that does not deliver and see what the problems were. By the way, when we went to Matagorda yesterday, they said they'll have about 80 or 90% of their power back, except for the city of Sargent. So they'll have their power back. We were in Jasper yesterday. All the counties, with the exception of some spot areas, felt like they're going to have 80 or 90% of their power back. If CenterPoint meets their goals by Sunday, they will have reduced it from about 2.2 million people without power down to still about 500,000 for next week. Folks, that is not acceptable. And I know it's a hard job. I know it's more people than they've ever had without power, and I know that no other power company in the country has ever put 1 million people back online in 2 days. I saw a report last night on one of the TV stations that said this is the third day without power. Well, they obviously couldn't restore it on the day of the storm, so it was the second day. So they did get 1 million back. But and people are reasonable, and people are patient, and people are understanding. You know, people have gotten out and they've seen this damage. Travis Herzog on Channel 13 last night gave a great description, I thought, in the weather. You know, this was a Cat 1 story, a Cat 1 storm, but why was there so much damage? I mean, when you go out and about and see it, it's because the eye wall came over a large part of the city with the most sustained winds and gusts. and it maintained itself for 3 or 4 hours. So I think as people have gotten out of their neighborhoods, if they can get gas in their car to go somewhere, if they can, they've seen this damage. It's really unbelievable. The other day in the press conference, Tom Ramsey, our commissioner from Harris County, said that this debris collection will probably be double what we had during the derecho that we had several weeks ago. Tremendous debris. So I understand they have a tough job. We're going to investigate it. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We are always going to have big storms in this area. We have lots of trees that hit power lines. That's going to happen. But we have to be sure that they were prepared as they should have been before. My only comment on that, and I've had lots of meetings, lots of discussions, I sense that maybe they didn't see the impact that we had. They underestimated the impact of the storm and the direction of the storm. They brought in 12,000 people, and you understand they can't bring in 11,000 people 4 days out and put them in a hotel and feed them, and they don't even know where the storm's going. You can't chase that army. But it would appear they were not as prepared as they should have been and not ready to go as quickly as they could have been. And had they, and again, we'll see what the facts are later, but had they, then maybe some people would have their power sooner. They say that they'll have cut that number from 2.2 million, 2.3 million without power down to about 500,000 by Sunday. So many people will be back, but let me tell you what, it's a terrible situation for people who are in this heat. Stores around them aren't open. Where do you get food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not a state function to operate that, but it is our state Public Utility Commission to oversee it. And as we speak right now, there's a committee hearing at the Public Utility Commission in which the CEO of CenterPoint is testifying. If he hasn't already, he will be shortly. So that process already started. Right now, we'll get back and dissect what happened or didn't happen. But right now, I want every person at CenterPoint to have one job: get the power back on. We'll talk about what happened before the storm later. Just get the power back on. Let's open up for questions.
Question for Nim Kidd. Can you tell us exactly how many generators your agency has and where exactly you have deployed them?
Yes, ma'am. Our agency owns about 75 generators. Those have been deployed mostly into the Houston, Galveston area. I can get a list of the breakdown of the cities. Those are smaller generators that are supporting traffic intersection signals. Those are the ones we own. The rest we contract out for. And there's been about 135 generators that have been requested and are delivered or en route to be set up. And in cases, some of them are set up waiting on facility electricians to be able to hook them up to the building. Now, another good story of that, and we want to continue this, for generators that we have already put in the field, when power has been brought back onto that facility, we're getting those same generators and moving them to another facility to be ready for the next deployment.
Can you walk me through a little bit more detail about where they are deployed?
They're all over the place. We'll get a map for you that have those locations. Well, critical infrastructure facilities. Some are at hospitals. Some are at traffic intersections. Some are at water and wastewater treatment plants. So they're public infrastructure type facilities. They are not at homes, and they are not on private sector businesses.
And a question for the Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you asked CenterPoint where they're deploying their generators, and have they provided you with that information? And if so, can you share it?
Yeah. So, and some of you will understand this. And I used to be in the media, so I understand this. But I've gotten a lot of PIR requests in the last 3 days, wanting to know every email or every text I have with the word outage or CenterPoint or whatever. And I've complied. But you know what? That takes hours away from my job. And I really want to be on the ground with county judges and mayors. And again, I appreciate you have a job to do. We answer and we respond. But right now, I don't need to call CenterPoint and have someone take time to give me a list of where their generators. I need them to get the power back on. That doesn't benefit me or anybody to give you that answer. I know that they filled in the 9 fire stations with generators, but I'm sure they have them out there. But I'm not going to bother them right now. They need to get their rear ends in gear, which they have, and go to work.
So we're seeing senior living centers
Yes.
where residents haven't had power for days.
Yes.
My question is, who is responsible for getting generators to these vulnerable seniors who don't have power? Who's responsible for that?
The facility owner.
Yes.
And
Those-
if they're not to be seen,
Then they will be
you don't
held,
have a further-
if they are a licensed entity by the state of Texas, they will be held accountable for that.
Yes.
But when you spend money in a location to put your loved one in that location is responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the patients and residents that are there. It is that facility's responsibility. And listen, some of those facilities have done great work, and debris may have damaged their generator, and we are trying to support those as well as we get it. But we are not allowed to get reimbursed by the federal government under the law for money that we spend on private sector entities. And this is where Judge Hidalgo's comment really needs to be scrutinized. Why she said businesses will get money from FEMA, I have no idea, but that's against the law. It's against the law for FEMA to give money to private sector businesses. It's not allowed, and that message needs to be put out. We are helping our public infrastructure as much as we can because that is what is allowed in the law.
Yeah,
So-
you've asked, let me take some other questions. I can't go through your whole list there, but, yes, sir.
For you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We know you had a previously planned trip, but why hasn't Governor Abbott returned yet to address Beryl and recovery?
Yeah, look, the governor and I have worked really well together for now 9 years. I have confidence in him and he has confidence in me. Not every time, but most of the storms that we've been through, I've either been at the emergency center, sitting in the briefings or the meetings, or working with the governor. We work together on these issues. So he has total confidence in me. In fact, he put out a statement. We've done everything under the letter of the law. We didn't delay anything. We didn't need the generators from Biden on Sunday or Monday. We didn't need his ready-to-eat meals. We already distributing those. But again, we'll use his ice and water now, and we're up and running. So we were positioned before he left. He got us in position, and that was his decision. We haven't, let me just tell you what. I'm just a spokesperson, and the reason I'm a little direct today about the president, I'm not the expert, and neither is Governor Abbott on these issues. He is, and his team. We have the best people in the country. And let me give praise to John Whitmire. The mayor is doing, I think, an incredible job here on the recovery. The best he can do. He's an action-oriented guy. I'm an action-oriented guy. The job for the governor and I are to lead, take advice, take counsel, to communicate. And everything we did on these declarations, like we said, we did it. I don't know, is Jeremy Wallace here? I don't know if there's Jeremy here? Okay.
It's a shame.
It's a shame. Is anyone from the Chronicle here? Okay, you're the Chronicle. You know, the story that we delayed it, it's just untrue. It's just a lie. You heard the data shows 16 days is the average time from a request for declaration to the approval.
It's my understanding that
I
there
got
are
it.
multiple different types of declarations. There are ones that you file ahead of the storm, and there are ones
Yeah.
that you file after.
Yeah, well, why don't you learn about it before you,
Choose
okay.
not the story.
Okay. Right, it's
Okay,
not
well,
your
you're
story.
defending the story now, and that's what's part of the problem.
That's part of the problem.
Right.
We're-
But there are disaster declarations that are put in place before the storm hits.
You're responsible for adding to drama to citizens that are in
Yes.
need right now, making it think they're supposed to be getting something that they're not. Well, you are, so
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back, if I can, to you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there has been more than 6 or 8 hours that I have not had a conversation with Governor Abbott in this
Right.
entire period.
Right.
So while he is out on a very important economic trade mission right now, Texas is the #1 generator of jobs, right? This is a disaster that's impacting a very significant portion of this state. But the Constitution is set so that when the governor is gone, the lieutenant governor is acting governor. And there has not been a single thing during this response that we would have done different, whether it was my work for Governor Abbott or for Governor Perry, or when I was the city emergency manager for the city of San Antonio for Mayor Julian Castro, or Phil Hardberger, or Ed Garza. The process we are using today is the same one that has always been in law, and any challenge to that is a flat-out lie.
There are 12 hospitals in this county, I believe, that are on internal disaster. Can you explain what that means and tell us which hospitals?
The hospitals, I won't give you the list of them over the right now, but I will share that list with you. We'll get CETRAC, the Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council, who is one of the organizations in the state that manages coordination with hospital. I can tell you what internal disaster means is either they don't have enough staff or resources to take care of the patients that they have, which is why we put up to a 250-bed hospital at NRG Stadium, and why we've added a minimum of 25 ambulances to this mix to be able to move those patients around as fast as possible.
And that happened in less than a day. when we were asked about that, and we did it immediately. The bottom line is there was no delay. The president has misled everyone, and some of the people in the media, the Chronicle particularly, has picked up and just followed anything the president said, being unchallenged. And now hopefully the Chronicle will report the real story. You had
The
another
truth.
follow-up question?
Just go back to Abbott really quick.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what date exactly he'll be back?
It's for his office.
Yeah.
Ask his
yeah,
office.
Yeah, that's his office, and you can ask him. And he and I have talked multiple times since he's been gone. We are on the same page. I followed and I told him. I said, look, we've worked together on so many issues over the years and storms, but I'm in a different role this time. I said, what's the protocol that Governor Abbott has done to the T? I want to know. And we have followed that. We did a lot of press conferences because, and a lot of TV interviews all over the state because it happened over the holiday weekend, and I was afraid people might be surprised by the storm. So we did a lot of those, but we have done everything according to the law, and the president has just politicized this and weaponized it. And when I saw this yesterday, grants it and takes it away. Well, when I asked for it continuing, you can see the box is checked. He didn't let us continue it. He literally, on the same day he gave it to us, he ended it. That's your story for the Chronicle. Another question? Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll come over here. Yes, sir.
You spent a considerable amount of time of this news conference talking about back and forth between yourself and the
Yeah.
White House. But do you think the average citizen right now in Houston, Harris County, who's without power, has lost food, is trying to figure out where they're going to get that, are they really that concerned about
Okay.
this? Are they
Look.
more concerned about, should their focus be on when their focus is on when are they going to get their power back?
Okay.
Where can I pick up food
Right.
that I've lost? Do you think the average person is
No,
really concerned?
the average person doesn't care about that. And
So why do you spend some?
So,
why did you spend
so
time
here's,
on this?
there's two things. First of all, it's the state of Texas and your mayor and county judges in other counties. The county judge here said she didn't need anything, she's fine, so I don't know what she's doing. It's up to us to make all those things happen, and that's what we do. They need police, we bring police. They need ambulances, we bring ambulances. They need a hospital set up, we set a hospital up. They need water, we bring water. They need generators, we bring generators. We're doing all of that. They need cooling centers, we support them in the cooling centers, but they gotta have to power the cooling centers. CenterPoint has to run CenterPoint. The state doesn't run CenterPoint, we oversee them. So the purpose of why the back and forth is this reason. We do not want the people of Texas to think they are going to be shortchanged on what they deserve to get. Bottom line, they were told one thing and another thing happened. And only because the media has continued to report incorrectly that there was some delay, then people sit back and say, well, gee, what's wrong? I'm not going to get what I want. That's probably why we don't have power. They internalize that to make it bigger than it is. This settles it today. This settles it today. The documents are here, you can read them, you can report on them. But you're absolutely right. The people are concerned about that, but we're not, but this is an issue for Texas right now, but this is bigger. We cannot have any president, Republican or Democrat, ever again weaponize FEMA. Can't have it. And that's why the story is important to get the facts out.
So what are the next steps?
No, you've had enough questions. Yes, sir, you had one in the blue
And what
shirt. Ma'am,
specific
excuse me,
questions does the
ma'am,
state want CenterPoint to
ma'am,
answer?
ma'am, just hold on a second, okay? You want to give some other people a chance? Yes, sir, you had a question?
Yes, you mentioned as an investigation
Yes.
is going to start CenterPoint.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. What will be the consequences, and if there will be any reforms on how things are handled during natural disasters?
Yes, I'll let you go first and I'll answer.
So the consequences will be up to the Public Utility Commission for whatever fines or fees or regulations that they would want to put on not only CenterPoint, but any other utility companies. And I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your question.
Yeah, the other question was, like, will there be any reform on how things are handled when it comes to a natural disaster after a Beryl?
We are going to continue as the State Emergency Management Agency to do our job in accordance with the laws, rules, and policies that the federal government sets. As far as what may be implied by the Public Utility Commission, I really need you to ask them that question.
And I have another question.
Yeah, and let me add to that answer. So again, our role, NIM's role, and our role at the state is where there isn't power and we need to be there to take care of that. whether it's a cooling station that we can assist, whether they need ice, whether they need water, whether they need meals, whether they need generator. That's our job. CenterPoint's job is to get the power back. When this is all over, yes, there'll be an analysis. As the governor said today, there'll be an investigation. And I'm sure we will find that there are things they could have done better. I'm sure there will, and we will address that, and we will enforce it. Every storm we have, we learn something. Every disaster we have, we learn something, and hopefully we get better. If you go, I think when I go back and look at these sheets of 2007, 2008, we didn't even really have a major state response. We just didn't have the personnel. We had not invested the money. But we have over the last 15 years. And so we've learned, and CenterPoint will learn. You think CenterPoint will learn, trust me.
I have another question, just
Yes, sir.
very quickly.
Yes, sir.
I think it's very important, and a lot of viewers and residents, they want to know
Yeah.
and answer it. Is the state considering modifying the electric grid, making it underground to avoid these type of damages?
Yeah.
If not, whose responsibility is to
Okay.
take these decisions?
So let's separate the grid as a whole different issue than the power going out. We have our own, the grid is a whole different issue, which we're addressing and have been addressing and will continue to address. The power's down because the lines are down, and the transmission lines are down, primarily because of trees fell on them. That's different from the grid. I saw a story on one of the stations last night, and they asked a question, why not bury the lines? Well, number one, it would be prohibitively expensive. Number two, you have all these other lines underground. The time it would take to do it would be decades. Imagine burying every line. And lastly, water gets in the ground and water does not mix with electricity. And if you had to repair something, it'd be very hard to repair. So I know it seems like an easy answer. Wouldn't it be great to put all the power lines underground? It's just not practical and wouldn't work. But we do have, I know, not we have a plan, CenterPoint has a plan to continue to invest to harden their transmission, the big transmission lines as well as the standards that hold those. And I think that's a wise investment they should take. We can harden those transmission lines and harden the facilities, but this is just a fact. We are a town and all East Texas. You go up where we were in Jasper. Look out there. Look at all the trees. We have trees growing right next to power lines. Drive down any street where there are houses on the street and a fence, and you'll see trees in the backyard right over the power line. When you get 80-mile-an-hour winds, trees are going to fall. I lost a big tree in my yard. It fell and cracked another one. Big trees. I would have never thought so. But the ground was so saturated, the wind came along and knocked the trees over. Now, it wasn't near a power line. But my point is, it's obvious where you have all these trees and 80-mile-an-hour winds, you're going to have an issue. And so that's always going to be a problem. In that area, the response time has to be better because you have to be prepped and ready better and sooner with more people. And I think when we look at this, that analysis will be they didn't have enough people ready at the right time. I'm not making that judgment. I'm thinking that's the most likely. They didn't see the storm being as severe as it was, and that was part of that. But I'll let them answer for that. Yes, sir.
Governor, I wonder how this experience, when you look at the preparation and
Yeah.
how the recovery has gone, if that has influenced your legislative priorities next year at all. Do you see a need for more long-term, high-level, statewide policy change?
Yeah. Well, so look, this has been ongoing. The center that we have in up at the Rellis campus at Texas A&M, where we're based out of, where NIM is based out of now, headquartered there. That's come about over the last 10 years. The Governor Abbott, myself, and Governor Perry before, we've been investing more and more and more every year. Go through just briefly with the assets you have now that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yes, sir. When I took this job in 2010, the state appropriation for the biennium for TDEM was about $3.5 million. Statewide, see your eyes get up. That was how little the investment was back, even after Hurricane Ike. That investment has significantly increased, and I'm very grateful to the Texas legislature for the trust that they have put in our agency. 5 years ago, they pulled us out of the Department of Public Safety and made us a standalone agency nested in the A&M University system. And people wonder why A&M. Well, it goes back to the land grant mission of the Memorial Act of the 1800s, actually, that takes higher education and extends it out all over Texas. There are 7 state agencies that were already in the A&M system. We became the 8th. And what that did was allowed us to have our own request to the legislature without going through a different agency, the Department of Public Safety, who at that time, their priorities, as they rightly should have been, were the highway patrol and driver's license. What we have seen is an increase in our staff, of our resources, of our facilities, and of our capability since we have made this change that really just started 5 years ago.
So I don't have the answer today, but I was with the Senator Robert Nichols in Jasper yesterday, and for example, one of the issues that came up is we need to do a broad study on flooding and drainage, because when it floods up north, it comes down to Houston, comes down to Kingwood. So, and that's a major multi-billion-dollar project, but we have to get a handle on flooding, for example. It wasn't as bad. That was one of the things that didn't happen as bad that some people thought. They didn't get as much rain up north on the end of the storm. So that's a part of it. We have to work with the partners who do provide our power and deliver our power. The CenterPoint delivers it. And what legislation do we need to do to be sure they have the proper things in place? Every time there's an event, we learn something from local communities that we try to make things better the next time. And we continue to do that, so we will. I don't know what those answers are today, but there's one thing we can't stop. We can't stop the wind blowing 80 miles an hour and a tree falling on a power line and knocking power out. That's going to be with us forever, so we have to, reinforce those so that it happens the less as it can happen. And look, people don't want to have a tree policy. There is a policy you're not supposed to, grow trees around power lines. Nobody really follows it. Everybody loves their trees, so we're probably not going to go down that road, but we've got a lot of trees out there, so it's kind of part of the problem. But everything else we will address for sure. Take 2 more questions, that's it. Yes, sir.
Question for Chief Kidd.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you could just sort of explain what kind of aid does the President's Disaster Declaration enable? Is it just reimbursement after the fact, or is it immediate aid to residents? I guess I'm trying to get a sense as to if this process got rolling sooner, would things have be better here?
Yeah, that is probably the most important question I've heard so far. Thank you for asking it. I do want you to read the law in the package that we have provided for you, because it validates what I'm getting ready to tell you. Under the FEMA Public Assistance Declaration, there are 2 categories: an emergency declaration and a major disaster declaration. The emergency declarations that we have asked for recently have been granted only with something called direct federal assistance. And what that means is things that FEMA would put in this state, we can ask them for, and they will provide to us, charging us 25 cents on the dollar for those resources. That category B, which is emergency protective measures, under direct federal assistance, does not give a dime to local governments, to the state, or to any citizens. Under the major disaster category for public assistance, not 1 dime goes to citizens. It only goes to local governments, state agencies, and certain eligible nonprofit organizations. That's clearly written in the law. If you'll read the regulation, it will really help all of us understand this. The way that citizens get money for individual assistance, the IA program, as written in the law, is after assessments are done. There is a clear set of criteria in 44 CFR Section 206 that I hope you will read, that says the things a state must prove and demonstrate to FEMA and the President that we have sustained damages to a certain magnitude for the President to consider granting an IA declaration. We have proven those, we believe, for the 16 counties, 15 or 16 counties that Governor Patrick is asking for now. We will continue to do damage assessments, but in many cases, our local governments were not ready because the streets were not safe, power lines were still down, debris was still in the way, and as the workers have tried to clear that, damage assessments are continuing to happen today and will continue until all of the counties that have been impacted are met. And when that happens, by law, we have 30 days to get this request to the President. We're not going to wait 30 days. As soon as we know counties are eligible, we are asking them to turn those counties on. But to do it any other way, you would be asking me to break the law. And I'm not going to do that.
And ma'am, you were getting ready to ask about the 2 different declarations. That's why even if Joe Biden had found me, we would not have asked for the emergency declaration because our cities and counties would have received no money for debris removal. And we didn't need it because we had all the generators, we had everything we needed. And I would have asked him on Tuesday, which I did, once I surveyed out and found what we needed, I would have asked him exactly what I asked him. And that was for an emergency disaster declaration, Part A and B. And that gave our local jurisdictions coverage for all the money they spent on debris, which is going to be massive. And that had rarely been done before. And he granted it, and that's why I was grateful. I said, Mr. President, I need an emergency disaster declaration for A and B. It goes all the way down to category G, by the way, of other things that will be added, that they add later. And so that's what we did. And that was the exact thing we were supposed to do. And the president granted it. In fact, when I asked him, he said, give me a minute. He went off the phone. He came back in about 30 seconds, and he said, yes. And I said, and I repeat, I believe, we didn't record the phone call because I don't record the president's call. That would not be appropriate. But he said yes, and I said, I need it for 121 counties. And he said yes, and we needed continuing. We filled out the form saying we needed continuing. We did everything that was best for our citizens, our counties, and our cities, and our state. We did what was best, and he agreed. And then a few minutes later, he went on the internet and said just the opposite. He gave us the major state, which is actually even better. And they asked us to resubmit, which we did. And then he went out and criticized it for us. And then, what we didn't know, the next day, he ended it all. So we're not going to get money. And now I believe, and part of this, you asked me the question. I believe after this press conference, we ought to be able to go back to the president and say, you need to extend this. And go back to FEMA and say, you need to extend this because we had damage after those 2 days. And I believe he should grant this waiver for these 15 counties or 16 counties because we followed the law, did what they told us to do for individual assistance, and that's what we'll do. And when we get Jasper and Matagorda, which we hope to get tomorrow because they're doing that, we will file another waiver to get individual assistance for those counties. So this is just, I understand your question, you make a great point, but the facts need to be known. We did what we were supposed to do. We followed the law. And by the way, all the FEMA people that we were working with in the operations center, they knew exactly what we were doing. They didn't have any questions at all. Right?
Yes, sir. And Governor, I would ask, and I'm asking you, all of you, Ms. Rice from the Chronicle, all of you, before you write another story that you put out in front of my citizens, do all of the facts and all of the data gathering, not just what supports the narrative that you're trying to support. When you look at the totality of information, this disaster was requested timely, and we got an answer faster than we've gotten in the past. But this supports the reason that we're following the law. And don't confuse our citizens by making them think we weren't doing something we were supposed to do. That's what I ask you to do. Look at the totality of information. We have a great professional media team. We will answer your call 24 hours a day, but quit putting out false narratives. Do your job as journalists, not as, I'll stop there.
Yeah, and look, and we answer all your questions. You know, we answer, and all those PIR requests and everything else, we're very open. You ask us a question, we'll give you an answer. So, thank you. Let's get the power back on. We're going to head over and continue to work today and see what else is needed, and we'll respond. And we'll be back in touch with the White House, I'm sure, to see if they'll agree to more disaster declarations and more extensions, because that's what they told us they would do. Thank you all very much.